We are God and God is us, and that we are God walking in the flesh, each and every one of us, and there is no separation. We're all the same entity, just in different variations or different forms. Yeah. Also, another mistranslation is the God. God is not supposed to be singular in the Bible. It's plural in all cases, gods with an S. For people in the third dimension, we're in the third dimension, what we tend to not understand, time doesn't exist. And like you said, we've been given this functional arrow of time, which puts us in one specific direction so that we can organize our thoughts and our days and our years and weeks and what we're going to do and what we're going to meet up with somebody and everything else. So we have this ability to coordinate and collaborate with each other like how we're here today at this specific time. However, if you understand that time is also an illusion, it's something that you can use as a tool, but if you also understand that it's an illusion, then you can actually master time and you can maximize what you're doing on this planet. The programmers that are writing this AI code, they're not conscious. You know how we know they're not conscious? Because you look at the way that the algorithms work on social media, they're racist, they're biased, right? They have agendas. We know this just by posting stuff on social media, how the AIs work and manage your social media account. And so we have to have conscious programmers, people who are spiritually conscious and focusing on becoming an ascended wisdom keeper. Translation that's off is they say, well, Jesus was crucified.
Whoa.
Well, that doesn't exist in the Sinai Bible.
What happened
It
to
doesn't
him?
exist in the book of Barnabas. They didn't kill him. In Harvard Library, there is a book of Jesus' wife at the Harvard Seminary School. And they found that about 8 years ago.
Jesus' wife is the Mary Magdalene?
Yeah.
So she was not actually...
They're assuming it's Mary Magdalene. It doesn't specifically say, but we're assume that it is, which means he probably had kids and his Merovingian bloodline is still probably walking the land till this very day. People say, why do you always study the past? Why are you into this ancient texts and ancient books and all? Because until you understand what happened back then, you won't be able to build a future. The future is going to be built based on what you know about your true past and your true history. If you can't figure out at least as close as possible to what was happening back then, the future is still going to be a gray area. The word for virgin was mistranslated from Aramaic into Greek. So the word originally meant, I think it was laga, which means young woman. By the time it got to Greek, it was translated wrongly into virgin, which then made it into the biggest part of the story of Jesus, which is that his mother was
So she might
virgin.
not have been a virgin.
It's possible. But when I saw what convinced me, that's why I looked deeper. That's how I found out about the grandmother. I said it might be true. But they still use that mistranslated word for that. Maybe they didn't have another word to use. But that's a big mistake. Because there's certain parts of the Bible where they use that same word to describe women as being virgins, and they tell men that you have the right to rape them.
So who do you think wrote this?
These are these Anunnaki people. See, they were these Atlantean leaders.
Yes.
It got to the point where they became greedy and they became self-made gods. And they really believed it. They were battling each other
like
over
the pharaohs
resources.
Of Egypt in a way?
Yeah.
Gotcha. You're drunk
battling
off
over
power.
resources and people. Wow. Battling and, literally like fighting over who's controlling who. And how we all got to be different races.
Yeah.
That goes back to...
How did that happen?
Yeah, that goes back to the Tower of Babel incident in the Bible, which comes out of the Sumerian tablets. I believe personally, just based off of my research, and I've gone through now over 1,000 scriptures, texts, papyruses, cuneiform tablets from all over the world. They all have a very similar story. And all these ancient civilizations talk about beings, not just beings who came here from other planets, people that look like us and we look like them. In other words, not identical, but very similar. In other words, a bilateral, bipedal hominid of some type that can maneuver around, that has appendages that can manipulate the environment, because without that, you can't move out into space and other places. And they also talk about multidimensional. You get into like the non-Kamadi and stuff like that. You're talking about multidimensional beings. And so in physics, in quantum physics in particular, they started theorizing on these dimensions and were able to even analyze and discover some that they actually do exist. And on top of that, they realized that the dimensions are packed so tight on top of one another that if you can phase shift your atomic structure, your subatomic frequency, you can walk right into another dimension. And so they started postulating, what if beings from higher dimensions or some of these apparitions and these paranormal phenomena that we're seeing Are they able to maybe take a glimpse or a peek? Are they phasing through into our universe? And so from higher dimensions. And so they started really theorizing it. It seems to be, and based on my research, that there's people living everywhere. Not just, and I'm not talking about little green men with antenna. I think that there's people living all throughout this universe in the third dimension. And I think there's people living all throughout even higher multiple dimensions, maybe at a certain level, a certain height in those dimensions. Maybe they don't have a real corporeal body.
Right, non-physical.
Non-physical, you know what I'm saying? But I believe that the consciousness is there. So if you draw a line on a piece of paper, that's the first dimension. If you then connect those lines and create a house on a piece of paper, that's a two-dimensional structure, or you can move that into a computer. Anything you see in a computer that looks 3D is actually 2D, right? So, and because we're in the third, we can see down into 2D, we can see all the way down, obviously, into 1D, and we can manipulate those dimensions from our higher selves. Now, now there are beings in fourth, fifth, and sixth dimensions. There's people above us. Now, because of that, they see us and they recognize the past, present, and future operating all at the same time. Everything's happening at once.
Right.
There is no separation between the past, present, and the future. The arrow doesn't exist. Because they're higher than us, they can look down into the third and they can see into what we're doing. There are 11 dimensions. At least we believe that in theoretical physics, right? And we believe that now through real science that the brain is connecting to 11 dimensions. I just did a huge lecture on that the other day, where scientists and laboratories have now understood now that the brain, the synapses between the connections in the brain, the neurons, are phasing in and out of the third dimension and connecting potentially, in the theory, to higher dimensions. That means that the earth itself, which is conscious, the earth itself is actually conscious. It's also connecting to these higher dimensions. It has a capability of phase shifting consciously to higher levels of thought and awareness of its own self. And so I believe that as the human beings on the surface become more conscious and we get this mass awakening, it's also going to allow the earth to transform into its true dimension, or its true self, where it really wants to be, this higher level of self that the earth has it as well. And that we can phase shift together into this, higher dimension of consciousness. And this physical third dimension will always be here, but our thought level will be so high, we'll be able to perceive the past, present, and future at the same time. We'll be able to see the end before the beginning. We'll begin to tap into our true innate abilities that we already have. And we'll recognize that we're all truly spiritual beings and that there is no separation. When you put the pressure of the spinal fluid on the pineal gland, it sparks. But it's so amazing because it allows you to reach higher levels of dimensions and consciousness. When you tap into that, you bring awareness to it, your intuition skyrockets. The fluoride converts into fluorine and becomes 10 times more toxic for the body. It's a neurotoxin at that point. One of the biggest things you can do to detox your pineal gland is, the pineal gland is this little tiny pea-shaped object inside, deep inside the brain. In most cases, a lot of people represent it up here as the third eye, but in true reality, it's not in the front. It's way deep in the center of the brain. It's been known since deep antiquity, super ancient times, which makes you question how in the world did they know that this thing was an eye? In other words, it has photoreceptors. Now, you would have to be able to, first of all, do an autopsy on somebody, take it out, and then analyze it to see, what capabilities it even has. So they had some technology, I'm just saying. But they knew that this thing had the capability of receiving photons and light waves and then channeling it throughout the body, which is pretty interesting. Also, the third eye, it has these hairs on it, which are like receiving antennas, because it's your spiritual antenna. It's your connection to the higher dimensions that exist. We know that this universe has 11 dimensions based on string theory. And what's interesting, in 2022, a new scientific study came out. They just discovered that the human mind can exist and perceive up to 11 dimensions, the same amount as the universe. So we now know that our mind is a fractal of the whole. And this is peer-reviewed quantum physics. So it's not like off the top of my dome, right? But that has primarily to do with the third eye. It's also made of crystals. There's crystal in there. And crystals have an amazing power. When you put pressure on a crystal, it releases energy. That's what's inside of a lighter. If you have a big lighter, when you spark the lighter, that's not a flint in there or some type of Kindle. That's actually a crystal inside the big lighter. You put pressure on it, it sparks. When you put the pressure of the spinal fluid on the pineal gland, it sparks. So you can actually transmit, you can push the fluid up your spine into that area and put pressure. It'll spark. When it sparks, it releases DMT. And through breath work, you can create the same experience as taking ayahuasca, which is why I'm a big believer in breathwork meditations. Yeah. You can have your own DMT. You don't have to take it from a plant and have somebody out in the jungle somewhere. You don't even know if they're going to take advantage of you, because it's happened to a lot of people. You can do it in the privacy of your own home, watching a breathwork video with a guided meditation, and you can trigger the same exact response through a breathwork meditation as taking ayahuasca. But it's so amazing because it allows you to reach higher levels of dimensions and consciousness within your same body. And it's just really gives you a perception that you normally wouldn't have. When you tap into understanding how the third eye works, it's almost like waves of water crash on you when you're in the ocean if you're just standing still. So the average person is like a person standing in the ocean with the wave crashing over them. And when the wave crashes, that's when they realize, oh, this moment just happened. But when you're operating from your third eye, you're surfing on the wave. So you're closer to real-time information, because scientists discovered that there's a 7 to 8 second delay in between the time that something happens and the time that we realize it happens. They did this amazing scientific study where they put people in different rooms, dark rooms with TVs and electrodes of EEG connected to their brain, connected to computers. Originally, this experiment was simply to do one thing and one thing only: see what the brain looked like based on certain emotions. So every 10 seconds, they would show a different image: a woman coddling a baby, a bed of flowers, somebody getting murdered, a car accident. So it was flipping back and forth between tragic and peace. What started happening in every case study is this: the brain started transmitting to the computer 7 to 8 seconds ahead of time what the next image was going to be. And they realized something. Wait a minute. The brain has already experienced, consciousness has already experienced what's happening. It took us in this corporeal body 7 to 8 seconds to actually realize it for it to be now current time. So they realized there's this delay between information that exists and the human body processing it, and it being us being made aware of it. So everything that we see going on around us is 7 to 8 seconds delayed, unless you're moving from the third eye, the pineal gland. When you tap into that, you bring awareness to it, your intuition skyrockets, and intuition turns you into a surfer versus a person that's standing in the ocean waiting for the wave to crash over them.
What are a few ways we can detox our pineal gland?
The first thing is your water. You must drink unfluoridated water. Your water, most water, especially tap water, has fluoride in it. You go to a restaurant, you say, I'll have a glass of water. That's fluoridated water. Everywhere you go, they're giving you that fluoridated water. Some bottled waters also have fluoride in them, so you have to be careful what bottled waters you get. Saratoga is great, and Mountain is great. Those two. Fiji is also pretty good. So those are the top 3 bottled waters that I drink. The first 2 I named, Saratoga and Mountain, come in glass bottles, which I love because you get away from plastic that way. Fiji, unfortunately, does come in plastic, but you want to make sure you don't leave your bottled water in your car in a hot summer. When you leave bottled water in a car or somewhere where it's hot, the BPAs, which is petroleum, leach from the plastic into the water, and then you drink the water. And they did studies, extensive studies on this now. It's been now mainstream news that drinking bottled water stored in your hot car will give you cancer. So you think you're doing something healthy and you're still killing yourself. So get away from the fluoride and get a water filtration system for your house. If you can't afford that, try to at least get a filtration system for each faucet. One for your shower head and one for your drinking water if you're not buying bottled water. Because when you take a shower, your skin is taking in, your skin as an organ is taking in about 40 to 50% of whatever's in that water. So we know that in the water is fluoride, pharmaceuticals, now high levels of pharmaceuticals, and other toxins, including microplastics. So when you go and take a shower, you now put all that on your body, and then you come out of the shower, and a few minutes later, you start to feel weird. Why? It's because you've just poisoned yourself with pharmaceuticals. It's absorbed into the body, into the bloodstream, and now you've just given yourself everyone's in the neighborhood's prescription medication. And then you can't boil water. Don't boil your water. Some people try to shortcut boiling water. Boiling water is worse than drinking the tap water, because if you remember from chemistry class, some people probably didn't study this, but When you boil water with fluoride in it, the fluoride converts into fluorine and becomes 10 times more toxic for the body. It's a neurotoxin at that point because the molecules shift. Like people like to cook with water from the sink. For some reason, they don't make the connection. If I put this water from the tap, I'm cooking it, it's going to be boiling. That's going to make it better anyway. What they're doing is they're making a toxic soup. So you don't want to like put your spaghetti in a pot of water from your sink and boil it. You just created fluorine, and now you're boiling your spaghetti in fluorine. No good. Brain toxin. You want to look for filters that filter out fluoride and pharmaceuticals and bacteria and viruses. Those will be a little bit more expensive than just the basic filter,
sure,
but it's worth it to make sure that you're putting in, your body is made of 70 to 80% water. So you want to be putting in clean, fresh water into the body to rejuvenate your cells and your mitochondria. And so one of the biggest things you can do to detox your pineal gland is just drinking a lot of fresh, clean water that's not fluoridated, that's not toxic. And, and then the other way is to eat clean, don't eat a lot of processed foods, get exercise, and meditation is another great way to keep the pineal gland activated, specifically breath work meditations. I have a lot of breath work meditation. I think I have three 2-hour breath work meditations on Forbidden Knowledge TV that people can go and watch.
Please engage with this video by liking, commenting, and sharing. Subscribe to stay updated. For more amazing content, check out our next video.
Fourth dimension is something called a tesseract. And if you go into the ancient text, it's Metatron's cube. We're living in a shadow of a higher dimension. That shadow creates a third dimension. It actually creates a fractal of it, creates this fractal holographic matrix that we're actually maneuvering in the third dimension right now. You can actually connect to other realms, other dimensions through conscious thought. Quantum entangling your light waves with other light waves that exist in the universe, not only in the third dimension, but even multiple dimensions. The language of God is mathematics, because mathematics can literally explain everything that we experience and everything also that exists. Even the fact that we're existing in a light matrix can be proven through mathematics. So we're living in a matrix that's basically written on mathematics called Adinkra codes. And these Adinkra codes go all the way back to the Dogons. Dogon tribes out of Mali, Africa. Yeah. They actually originated these codes, and they were given these codes by the Nomo, and they learned them. They drew them out as art forms. But now, and they put them on clothing and blankets and everything else. I was referencing the flower of life, which, if you don't know what that is, anybody out there, it's a sacred geometrical figure. And it really goes back to as above, so below. If you're looking at, for example, just when you start off with the ovum with an egg, that's one sphere. And by the time you add 6 more interconnecting spheres, so it's really a progression of life. And at the base of everyone's spine are a group of cells that are in the form of the flower of life, and mostly almost all organic, especially mammalian species. There's this flower of life cellular formation in the base of the spine. It's there from the time you're born and stays there until you die. But that's just a representation in a biological life form, because as above, so below. When you go into the next level, where we're talking about the ether of space-time itself, and this is where he was kind of really getting deep with it. He discovered, when he unwrapped the flower of life, he discovered the energy grid, the grid that binds us all together.
6,000 years, mankind has been trying to decipher this one little thing called the flower of life. Now, do you know the flower of life? Have you guys ever seen this before? Now, this is one of the oldest symbols in human history, right? Or do you not know? This symbol was found in the Temple of Osiris in Egypt, and it had been molecularly burned into the wall. And it's 6,000 years old. This same symbol has been found in the forbidden temples in China, sitting under the fufu dogs. And the foot on it, the flower of life, saying whoever controlled that flower of life controlled the universe. There were secrets in that flower of life that Da Vinci spent his whole life trying to uncover. There were secrets in that flower of life that Newton spent his whole life in secret trying to uncover. The same secrets that Pythagoras was desperately trying to uncover. But their problem was they couldn't get it out of this two-dimensional frame. And as a result, they got stuck in this plane, a flat plane. Now, what Da Vinci and all of them wanted to do, they were trying to find a way to bring this flower to life, because what is inside of it? Well, apparently, there were secrets inside of it. Shapes, they got the Merkaba and all of those other things out of it. But they were misled by something I think called a straight line. You guys believe in straight lines? You believe there's straight lines in the universe? Well, let me hit you with something. All energy in the universe is expressed in what? It's in motion. If something is still, there's no energy. Kinetic, right? All motion is expressed in what? You look at galaxies. Are they expressed in straight lines? Expressed in vortices. All vortices are expressed in what? Waves. All waves are curved. Show me a straight line in nature. You show me where the Platonic solids come from. Where do they have their foundations in our universe? Are there any straight lines? If you look at anything, there are no straight lines. That's been the mistake. We've been looking at these straight lines, this Euclidean way of thinking, and missing the curvature of nature.
And when he's talking about the spheres, there are no straight lines. He's not saying, truly, in my opinion at least, from the short amount of stuff that he said, that Platonic solids don't exist. Platonic solids are part of the holographic matrix. Behind all of that, the only thing that does exist are electromagnetic waves. That's all, and there are no straight lines. So behind the holographic, the fractal quantum holographic universe, behind that, there is nothing but electromagnetic waves, and those waves are propagating and being sent into this realm, into this dimension, carrying energy, frequency, vibration. And when they interact with conscious thought, that's when they collapse things into Platonic solids, which then collapse things into what we get as an illusion of solidity, an illusion of locality, an illusion of space and differentiation, an illusion of perception. There's really only one true thing that does exist outside of what we consider to be the third dimension, is consciousness. And so consciousness literally has divided itself into trillions and trillions of entities throughout this entire universe. And the method that it emanates from is through something called the vesica piscis. Now, the vesica piscis is actually part of the flower of life. So where you have the intersecting circles in the flower of life, that is every one of those intersections is a womb. So at every single Planck unit in space-time, which is the smallest amount of distance you can measure, and time you can measure in space-time, all around us, all through us, and everywhere that exists, is this flower of life. I mean, everywhere. Now, every single spot where the flower of life is located, there's also the intersections, and those intersections are the vesica piscis. Now, the vesica piscis emanates energy into the third dimension. Out of the vesica piscis is literally a womb, just like when you cut open a lemon, cut open an orange, cut open a grapefruit. Mm-hmm. Obviously, a human being is born through a womb. Life primarily comes through wombs. And this is why even in the biblical text, they reference the matrix. The matrix means the womb. So it's mentioned, I think, 5 or 6 times in the modern day Bible itself, which is copied from more ancient texts. But the name, the Matrix, for the movie didn't come from somebody's brain. They just made it, we'll make it the Matrix. No, the term the Matrix actually comes from the Bible. And what it says is that in order for a man to be born, he must exit the Matrix, and that he must come out of the womb. In order for any life forms to form in this third dimension, it must come through the womb. And this energetic grid that's created by this sacred geometrical figure called the flower of life literally connects every single one of us. We are all literally sitting on this grid. It's this invisible grid that we're on. One thing people don't understand is that we are all made of actual light. Well, everything in the third dimension is made of light. Mm-hmm. And so we are light, and light is us. Mm-hmm. We know that the illusion of this avatar body and this chair I'm sitting on and the table that you're sitting at, the illusion of it's there, but what is this? This is slowed down light waves. Mm-hmm. When you slow light down and then consciousness interacts with it, it collapses it into what we call solid matter. Mm. So solid matter is actually an illusion. Right. For example, the only thing stopping my hand from going through this chair is the repulsion of the electromagnetic frequencies. I don't actually touch the chair. You don't touch anything.
Yeah.
And so if I can phase shift the atomic frequency of my hand to match the same frequency of the atoms in this chair, I'd pass my hand right through it because atoms are 99.999% empty space.
Like pouring liquid into liquid.
Exactly. You know, that's why when galaxies merge together, like we're merging with a galaxy right now called Sagittarius, because, you know, galaxies are mostly empty space, just like atoms. Everything's a fractal. So we are light beings, and also because of that, we're a fractal. We have consciousness, which is also light. And
what is a fractal?
A fractal is when you take, for example, if you look at a hologram, and you go to one part of the hologram, one tiny piece, and look at it, you'll see the entire image in that smallest piece. The only thing you lose is a little bit of resolution, okay? And so it's important for people to understand that this entire realm is a fractal of a whole. In other words, as above, so below.
So if you look at an atom, it gives you the whole thing.
It gives you the whole thing, absolutely.
So human beings, would you consider a fractal of the universe?
We're a fractal of the universe. And our consciousness, even though it's one consciousness, it's also a fractal of the main master consciousness. And it's really incredible that every thought that you think in your skull, it leaves your skull as a form of a light wave. And this is why quantum entanglement works. It's because we're all in that same energetic grid that is created by this flower of life. So, you know, if I take two particles or even two photons, and I utilize a laser to do something called parabolic down conversion and get them on the same frequency, I could take one of those particles to the other end of the universe, and I could change the information on the one that's local to me, and the other one at the other end of the universe will change instantaneously, bypassing the speed of light. How is that possible? It's because we're on this flower of life matrix grid, and everything literally is connected, and distance is even an illusion. So we are really living in a fractal holographic universe, and what he was trying to say is that the projection from this flower of life creates this illusion that we're operating and living in. And, you know, it doesn't mean that we're not real, but what it means is the mechanism used to create this third dimensional illusion comes and emanates, the energy emanates through that flower of life from the vesica piscis into this dimension, and along with then consciousness intervention, helps slow down the frequency and vibration of the electromagnetic waves, which then give us the illusion that things are solid, things have matter, things have substance, things have distance and locality and everything else. So it's really amazing. I mean, this is an amazing, I don't call it an experiment, but it's almost like we're living inside of an experiment or a creation, just like all the ancient texts have said. For what purpose to an end? I think that the main reason why we're here is to collect information and data, because it's as above, so below. So if you take it from the below standpoint, from the human brain, encased in darkness, doesn't know what's going on the outside, says to his friends, all its five senses, hearing, smell, seeing, touch, and everything, go out there and tell me what's going on. The friends go out and collect information, bits of data. They themselves don't know exactly what they are collecting. They're just collecting information from the outside. They can't decipher it. They bring it back to the brain, which is encased in total darkness, and say, here's the data. And the brain wants to then figure out what's going on. Then it projects a hologram as to what it thinks is going on outside, and you navigate through the matrix that way. Now, you take it to the larger scale, above, the universe itself is consciousness, okay? And what has it done? And now we're one of those. We're out here collecting bits of information as we live through our life, as we navigate through this matrix, and we send that data as a stream directly back to source so that it can experience itself subjectively from every different perspective in the third dimension. And all of this, to me, in my personal opinion, is emanating, the energy that comes into this dimension to create all of this is emanating through this flower of life, which are these electromagnetic waves, this dark energy and dark matter, which is not just because it's dark, we gave it the name dark. It's just out of our frequency of vision. It's an actual wave. All electromagnetic waves are all made of light. A lot of the times you can say, oh, I came up with this great idea.
Right.
But you really didn't. You just downloaded that idea because you entangled with the information. Plus, a lot of the male in this society right now, they're being emasculated.
Oh, yeah, sterilized.
And so, and a lot of it's chemical based.
Yes.
It's the food.
Chemical castration.
Chemical castration, man. It's all these microplastics that are, we're inhaling them, we're eating them. It's in the food, it's in everything. They did a test on those microplastics. They were converting male frogs into women, and so It's taking away the testosterone levels in men are the lowest it's been since they've been recording.
Right.
And so to that effect, what you're saying is, the levels are dropping, and the ability for men to make a lot of logical decisions is also dropping.
Right.
You see men now operating more off of emotion versus logic.
Right.
That balance of logic versus emotion isn't there anymore.
Right.
Sometimes there's a lot more men that are more emotional than women.
Yes.
So their plan is working out, and the plan for them really is to not let us discover our light body, not let us discover our light consciousness and the power that we really truly have inside of us to change and bend and mold this matrix to our will and overcome and supersede where they are.
Right.
What they want us to do is just continue to stay in these small little pockets, fighting each other over scraps, and not really ever getting to the higher levels and realizing that we're supposed to be able to bring our heaven right here to this earth right now.
When we see the negative, it stands out so big. There's so much positive going on, but it seems like the mind's always pulling. The negative seems so much bigger than the positive. Even if you have one negative or two negative comments underneath a post on social media, they really stand out versus the ones that are more positive, just because I think the mind somehow is drawn to it. So I work with myself to try to figure out ways to, to combat that.
And so a lot of people think that the law of attraction only works in positivity and abundance, but that's not true. The law of attraction works in also negativity and dark energy. And, so if a person's always doing things wrong or doing wrong things, I should say, being bad, trying to hurt people, trying to injure people, whatever the case may be, dark things, all the dark thoughts, that is going to reciprocate back to them. When a person is in a state of fear, despair, hate, anger, trauma, they always seem to have more and more of that coming back at them, because the law of attraction, it works on frequencies. If it's a low frequency, the universe says, give them more of this low frequency. High frequency, give them more of the high frequency. So it works in both ways. So people have to be very careful, because, there's a situation, in my opinion, with karma, where if you're always focusing on the dark stuff and always doing dark or engaging in darkness, you're going to get more darkness coming at you. And that darkness, in my opinion, could supersede your lifetime in this avatar body. It could follow your spiritual energy, which is eternal. So people say, well, the person died, it's all over for them. Well, maybe not. The energy never dies. It only transforms. Is the karma tracking that spiritual energy into the next life? It's possible.
We know that energy does not die. Energy just reboots itself and reboots itself. So we are eternal. So stop panicking, thinking your life is over. You've done this trillions of times. You'll get good at it, and we'll be perfect one time if we get conscious.
When I walk places, when I go places, I expect the universe to unfold for me.
Absolutely.
I expect things to open up for me and things to just happen for me when I walk into places. I can just be going to the grocery store. I'm walking everywhere I go. I'm walking in pure power. I act like I'm commanding and wielding the universe to my will. But the same power that created everything we see in this entire universe, in this multiverse, is the same power that's inside of my body. The program that he put in was so good. We're born, we're given a name, a race, and a religion, and we're basically, we grow up defending that whole identity. It's a fake identity. It's not really us. We've kind of forgotten and relinquished who we really are and given it up to this system, this institutionalized system that was put in place thousands of years ago. You're this religion, I'm this thing, or you're this light skin and I'm this dark skin. All this stuff, we gotta, black men want to fight black men all the time. We want to attack each other socially now on social media because you're doing too good and I'm not doing as good as you. We gotta drop all of that. We gotta stop all of that. We gotta synchronize. We gotta realize that we're better together than apart. Not tearing each other down, fighting each other, slapping each other, all this kind of crazy stuff.
Yeah.
We got to come together and we got to realize, man, how can I bring a piece of the puzzle? How can you bring a piece of the puzzle? You know what I'm saying? Just sitting here talking to you, you got pieces of the puzzle that I don't have, and I got pieces of the puzzle that you don't have. We can start building a whole doggone puzzle. We can put a puzzle together. And you add more people. Next thing you know, that picture, that painting is amazing.
Yeah.
We can make a mosaic.
Yeah.
And so until we get to that point, though, we're always going to be bickering and fighting and arguing over resources and pocket watching and hating and worrying about this, worrying about that, because that's the program they instilled into us. We got to now override this DNA and this RNA programming code. We got to say, you know what? We got to talk to ourselves. You know what? I'm being a hater right now. I'm being a troll right now. I'm pocket watching right now. I'm being jealous right now. Why am I doing that? And analyze inside of ourselves, why am I doing this? Why do I feel like this? And work on our internal self and learn how to not be that way. Learn how to give somebody the benefit of the doubt. Learn how to try to work with somebody. Learn how to ask better questions so you can understand better instead of getting angry. And, learn how to control your emotional state. And when we can do that and we can link up and we can make big power moves together, that's when the world's going to change. Every thought that you think creates a light wave that leaves your skull and goes. And we can't see the light because we only see 1% of the light spectrum. Every thought coming out of your brain right now, if I could see those light waves right now,
it'd be crazier.
All over the place. Right?
All over.
There's light coming out, there's lightning coming out of my head right now. You can't even see it because we only got less than 1% of the light spectrum. We can't see gamma rays, X-rays, infrared, ultraviolet, and so forth and so on. But these light waves, they go out, but what's on the light? It's encoded with information. Just like your cell phone. Cell phone right now is connected by light. Microwaves are light waves, waves of light. My cell phone is sitting here right now connected to a tower via a light beam that you can't see. And what's on the beam of light? Data. Same thing with your brain. This is a fractal of our human consciousness. It's sending out information. Every thought you've ever thought since you had a first thought is going out into space-time. It exists on the grid. So sometimes you're walking around and you get an idea. Something comes to you. It's not that you originated the idea. A lot of times it's that you've downloaded the information. Scientists discovered that our brains can our thoughts, our synapses can quantum entangle with other thoughts that exist in space-time. Yeah. Now it's real science. And you can get that information if you can discern it and understand what that just was. And then the next step is, can you act on it? So my ability or my superpower has been the ability to be able to get those epiphanies and recognize that I just got an information from a source, from the source out here, from the Akashic Records, or whatever you want to call it. Now, what do I do with it? Is it something that I can utilize in what I'm trying to accomplish as my mission here on Earth? And I go and I dig into it, I research it, I study it, and then I present it and bring it to the people. A lot of the times, information that I get like that, it gives me something new to talk about because it wasn't even on my mind until it came to me. And then I looked it up and it's real. And I go, oh my God, this is real. And now I'm putting it out. So that's, something that I've been able to, I guess you want to say maximize that ability that I've had to get information. So when we say things like your program code and you're operating off your code, it's actually a true scientific statement. 1 gram of DNA can hold 433 petabytes of data. There was one scientist, George Church, replicated his ebook 80 billion times and downloaded it onto 1 gram of DNA, which is 1 drop on the tip of your finger.
80 billion.
80 billion. What he did was he realized that DNA stored information. He was like, wow, our body is full of data. The whole human body is full of data. Billions and billions and billions of petabytes of data. And what he said was, he realized you can take data from a server, a computer, and convert it from zeros and ones into A's, C's, T's, and G's, which is what your DNA reads. And then you can actually download the data into the DNA and store data in a volume instead of storing it linear, like time, 1 arrow. But when you can store it in a volume, you can store much more information. So then he replicated it 80 billion times, and then he transferred it from DNA, from A's, C's, T's, and G's back into zeros and ones and uploaded it back into a computer. So he recognized that DNA is also a server. He's like, man, this is incredible. So we have this ability in us to move data and information. Now, because of something called epigenetic memories, we know that 15 to 20 generations before us, that programming code was downloaded into our body. So you're born with this hard-coded information already in your body. Most of it is only, though, this is the sad part, it's only trauma that came from previous generations. All the slave beatings and whoopings and the separation of loved ones and the buck fighting, all that stuff, it's in your body. That's why when black people start feeling like I'm depressed, I got PTSD, but they don't know why. I'm feeling down or ill or angry or whatever. A lot of it is, it's the epigenetics. So to overcome this, what scientists realize, you can actually start to re-encode that DNA by doing simple things. Simple. One thing is, write down 10 positive affirmations about yourself and then speak those out loud 3 times a day, out loud, for 21 days. And your DNA begins to change and rewrite itself. You begin to start to believe those cymatic frequencies coming out of your mouth.
that your body is actually listening to the information. Like you said before, the body is mostly water. The water has memory. The water in your body speaks conscious energy. So when you are releasing that conscious energy into the atmosphere, your body is then absorbing it back into the water, and then the light force energy is rewriting your DNA. And so we can actually rewrite our DNA. We can change the way we think and see and feel about ourselves just by speaking out loud. Like you said, meditation, and I love travel. That's all I do is travel nonstop. You already know that. That's going to enlighten and open up, broaden all your horizons. It's going to make you see things from other perspectives and understand. It's going to raise your consciousness. Traveling, I tell people all the time, leave your zip code. You got to.
It's this gradual process of growth and self-awareness, which all is about the RNA and the DNA, to be honest, because the DNA is awakening us. The RNA is awakening us to who we truly are. As we begin to see people start to look inward instead of outward and start to question the reality, question the norm, question the mainstream, it then takes them down a rabbit hole, which forces them to research and look for answers. And when they begin to find specific answers, another spark goes off in their body, and that's the DNA releasing answers. In other words, they're not really looking for answers, they're looking for confirmation. The body is already telling you, your DNA is already telling you, this is the path. The mainstream is telling you, no, this is the path. But you're getting better confirmation over here because it doesn't insult your soul. And right now, where we are in the universe, our solar system, it actually undulates up and down around the giant Milky Way. And these movements are huge, hundreds of millions of miles as it undulates up and down. Right now, we're at the perfect center of the equator of where the supermassive black hole is at the center of our galaxy. Scientists have identified this since 2013. We've risen to this level now. We're in the age of questioning and getting and looking for answers. This information age.
Well, the way that they built all these institutionalized systems that we have that are controlling mankind, they're all predicated on fear. You'll find that fear is the biggest thing. For example, you go to school, if you don't get good grades, you're going to get in trouble. You know, you won't pass the next grade. If you act up in school, you might get, you don't stay in line or whatever, you might get spanked with the ruler or the paddle or whatever. You know, obviously on the street is follow these exact rules or you're going to go to prison. You know, so they have all these systems in place. And these systems that they put in place, when they have these little fear factors built into them, even religion has a lot of fear factors put into it.
Absolutely.
People fall in line because why? Fear, the body pays attention to fear first. The mind is always, okay, there's fear. I got to stop this fear. I got to do whatever it takes to not allow this, whatever this fear is, to happen. I don't want it to happen to me. So the body goes into fight or flight mode, and then it starts focusing on the fear. Once the body does that, these people who rule, the ruling elite, they know that we got them with the fear. Now we can manipulate them to do whatever we want. So they always do the same thing. They create the problem, okay? They wait for the reaction, and then they provide the solution to that problem. So they're actually manipulating all sides of it based on fear. The fear is a key thing in all these institutions that has us locked in, because people, when that fear hits them, they don't recognize that fear is not real. False evidence appearing real is what fear is, right? The acronym. But for them, it's as real as it can be. But in true reality, fear is a choice.
The biggest thing we have to do on this planet is we have to operate in unconditional love. Because when you operate in that frequency, that 528 hertz frequency, that's when everything comes together. That's when unification comes together. That's when we can take back control of this planet, our lives, and help each other on this planet get to the next level. It's only through unconditional love. Hoarding and greed and everything else, that's the dark side. We want to get to the light side, and the only way to do that is through unconditional love for everyone on this entire planet.